she just starts to cry. And that was the first time I had met this girl, right? And I'm just like, dang, like, what is going on? Going into I think it was my junior year of college. I always try to preface and say that like my life was perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had a girlfriend at the time. My family's in Indiana. The businesses were as successful as they had ever been, and for me, like I just felt like it was just peace. I was at peace, and the reason that I want to like bring that to light is because one day, it was October 16th to be exact. I came back from soccer practice and I had no reason to feel like anything other than joy, right? And on October 16th, I remember coming back to my apartment and for whatever reason, I just started crying. And I felt in my heart so clearly that like I was supposed to leave everything and move to Los Angeles. And like, if I'm gonna be honest with you, like I hate Los Angeles, like Indiana, Midwest, like that's my home, right? Like that's where I always want to be. And so on October 16th, I remember coming back into my dorm room or apartment and just feeling so clearly that I was supposed to leave everything and move. And I was supposed to leave my businesses. I was supposed to leave, my college. I was supposed to leave everything and take up my life and go to LA, which I didn't want to do. And so I opened up my journal and I wrote October 16th, like move to LA, and I like closed it up and I was like, I'm gonna try to forget about this, right? Fast forward a couple months, I was down at my birthday party. My birthday is the day before New Year's, and
mine is too.
When's your birthday?
31st.
Okay. Sorry, mine's like the day before, but like we celebrated it, but not like the day. It's not the day of, but
yeah.
And so anyway,
that's so cool.
yeah. But anyway, so we were down at my birthday party, and have you heard of Movement, this watch company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were big when I was like in college, trying to think of like e-commerce and all.
Totally.
They were a big player in that.
100%.
I think I saw them maybe like shows and maybe like CNBC Business and maybe Shark Tank. I don't think maybe. Yeah.
I think they did a GoFundMe, but obviously those guys are amazing.
Yeah.
But anyway, to connect it to my story, that's when on my birthday, they had posted on Instagram that they needed a filmmaker for their New Year's Eve party. And I had reached out, I DM'd them back. And again, they had, several hundreds of thousands of followers, if not millions at that time. And I had about 500, 600 on Instagram. And I DM'd them and I was like, hey, if I was in LA, would totally love to like come out there and shoot for you guys. And they responded immediately. And they were like, hey, like, that's too bad. Like, we love your work. And I'm like, I was like, what do you mean you love my work? Like, I do wedding and construction videos, right? I'm like, I like, you didn't know, you're right. And so I was like, all right, well, and I remember I was sitting at my birthday party and, for me going on like the idea of being a light, is super huge to weigh. That's how I weigh every decision. Every decision that I make, it's based around the idea of like, can I be a light more here or there?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, and even into like the smallest of decisions, right? Like when it comes to like, even in college, like I never went out, never drank alcohol until I was like 21. And even at my birthday party, like, and it's like, for me, it's not that I like disagree with anything, but it's like the question I ask is like, are these things that you are acting on and deciding to move forward with helping you to reach the person that you were created to reach, right? And so for me, I'm like, man, is going out and drinking making me the best version to prepare myself for the opportunity that's going to be 3 years down the road, right? Or should I be trying to learn a new technique in editing that I'm going to need? And like, because I know that, that's going to allow me to reach that person because it's going to give me that job and lead me to that opportunity. And so that's how I always, make decisions. And so there I was at my birthday party with that decision to make, right? And I was sitting upstairs and all my friends, my high school classmates were in the basement. And I remember sitting up there with my buddy's mom and I was like, man, like, I don't know what I should do. And she's like, well, what are you thinking? And I'm like, well, for me, I'm like, do I think I'm being called to like reach someone out in Los Angeles? Or do I think I could like impact some of my old high school classmates like this evening at my birthday party in the basement? Like where do I think I'm going to make the biggest impact? And for me, I was like, I think I think I'm supposed to go to LA. And so I DM'd them back and I said, hey guys, I totally forgot I'll be in Los Angeles tomorrow. And they're like, hey, that's amazing. We'll see you in Venice. At this point, it was 11 o'clock at night in Indiana. Right. And I'm like, shoot. And I opened up my laptop and I searched like flights to LA. It was a $2,000 round trip flight. And I was about 3 hours away from that airport. Ooh. And so I was like, dang, like, all right, you know, I have to do this. And so I book it and I leave my birthday party, didn't even celebrate, and drive straight to the airport, get to the airport with the clothes that I had on. Luckily I had my camera in my backpack, fly to LA. And, you know, it's important to note, and I think this would be something that I would, you know, just like I would speak really heavily on. Obedience and humility played a huge role in that, right? Mm-hmm. Because there I was with the company and I had been doing, you know, video full time for about 5 years at that point, with the team underneath me. And it's very easy in any industry, but especially in filmmaking, to have this egotistical mindset that you are too good for something, right? That it's like, man, once I get to this level, I will never do anything below that. And so something that's really important for me is to just be like, hey, like how I define success is the idea of like how many people that I was created to reach, that I reached them, right? And where I say like humility and obedience plays a big role, I paid $2,000 to do a free party recap video. I'm the CEO of 2 companies and I'm doing a free party recap video for a watch company because I felt like that's where I was supposed to be. Right. And you don't see that in a lot of industries, specifically, you know, my industry within the film world, because a lot of times it's almost like there's levels to it. And it's like, hey, once I start, you know, I'm going to start doing wedding videos. And then once I start that, I'm going to do local music videos and then commercials and then big commercials and whatever. And something for me is like, you know, I want to be the guy that will, you know, be the creative direction behind an Adidas launch, but who also, you know, fly to Indiana and shoot your wedding. Right. Because for me, the value and the importance is on reaching you. Right. And if I feel like I can be a light to you at a wedding, or if I feel like I can be a light to the crew on set of this commercial, you know, that's where I'm going to be. And so anyway, to spark notes it, and then, you know, kind of wrap up because I've been spieling on the whole story, but I did the video. And I remember coming back, you know, I filmed it from 4 p.m. until 4 a.m. At 4 a.m. I flew back. From 4 a.m. until 8 a.m. that night, I had edited the video. And at 8 a.m., I shot it, read it for several hours. And then after I finished, I was hopping on my flight because I had class Monday morning. And I was flying back to school for class. And I sent an email, I go, hey guys, here's the video. You know, thanks so much. Like, I hope, you know, maybe I'll see you guys again, Blaine. Afterwards, you know, they posted the video, and I remember, you know, sitting in college, and around that time, that's when I got several opportunities that came out of that video to work with a lot of, you know, substantial people. And so basically, you know, that moment is what sparked notes a lot of my working relationships, you know, with Marshmallow and Fujifilm and Adidas, and all of these big clients had came out of seeing that video, more importantly, hearing my story, that I would like leave everything to like chase where I felt like I was supposed to be. And so that really was what separated and started to introduce us into this higher clientele, that moment. And so anyway, I got a text from one of my buddies. He was like, hey, you know, my name's Matt Como. I'm the head of content with GoPro. And he's like, you know, what are you doing the next couple months? And he, you know, DM'd me after that video, and I said, you know, I'm in school, but I said I have no plans. And he's like, hey, is there any way you'd be available to like travel the world with us and do a campaign? And it was like I can't remember what the campaign was for, but I did it. And we went around the world. And after we got back in West Hollywood, he's like, you know, like, what are your plans? And I was like, really don't have any. And he's like, well, why don't you like move in here? Why don't you like live with me and like help me out with videos? And I was like, okay. And so what's important to note is that everything had to happen for what I'm about to say, which will basically give you the reason as to why I do what I do. You know, going on that, being a light and like reaching people. I had moved to LA, but it was never a decision that I had made. Right. I remember on October 16th, I had felt like I was supposed to leave everything and go there. and I didn't want to believe it, but I kept making decisions that aligned with what I felt like I was supposed to do. And doors opened up that I could have never opened up, right? And that's where I always say, like, be super aware that, like, you may not have a clear understanding of where you're supposed to go, but have a clear understanding of where you're at right now, right? And it's like, I felt like it's not always going to be that clear that you're supposed to do something, but it is actually really clear if you know something feels right or doesn't. And so it's, for me, you know, going to movement felt right. Doing that thing felt right. And because I made decisions that aligned with where I felt like my purpose was where it was being fulfilled, things happened that I could have never planned for, right? That week, I got a message from this girl, and she asked if she wanted to do a photo shoot. And I don't typically like doing that, to be honest with you, because it's like, hey, like, let's just do a free photo shoot. But for whatever reason, I was like, hey, like, yeah, let's do it. And my first,
were you single at the time?
I was. No, it wasn't. I wish I could say it was, but it wasn't. But yeah, I ended up doing the photo shoot, and anyway, honestly, man, like, I couldn't have anticipated for what would happen following. We did the photo shoot. It was super normal, and we get done. And this was my first week in Los Angeles, right? I never spent more than 24 hours there, and this was my first week there. As I was living on the couch at Matt's house. And this girl, you know, she picked me up because I didn't have a car. 4 years later, still don't have a car in LA. And we could do a photo shoot, and everything was completely normal. We get done with the photo shoot, we come back to the apartment, and I'm getting out of the car. And as I'm getting out of the car, she just starts to cry. And that was the first time I had met this girl, right? And I'm just like, dang, like, you know, what is going on? And I'm sitting there, and I'm just, you know, letting her kind of cry. I cried out, and she began to explain how, like, her mom recently passed away from, like, brain cancer, and how, like, her dad had left at an early age, and how, like, the girl's at rock bottom, right? Can't pay rent anymore, is about to get evicted, and she's crying and just telling me everything. And I'm just like, holy cow. And after she gets done telling me everything she's going through, she, like, turns and looks at me, and she's like, you know, do you believe in God? And I was just like, what a heavy question, right? This is the first time I'd met this girl. And I was like, wow, well, you know, like, for me, you know, like, I do. And I began to explain, like, scientifically, like, why I think there's things that correlate with the existence of a God. And then I began to explain spiritually, like, why there's things that have happened in my life that are just, like, undeniable, right? And anyway, midnight turns into 1 a.m. and then 2 a.m. and then 3 a.m. And then before you know it, like, the sun's rising. And at that point, like, we're sitting there, and she's crying, I'm crying. And I was like, hey, like, you know, do you care if I just, like, do real quick? And she's like, yeah, I would love that. And, you know, we prayed together for just a quick time, right? Like 5 minutes. And after we get done, I told her, I was like, you know, as dark as this season, like, appears to be in your life, like, I want you to know, like, there's going to be a light. You just have to stay with it. And I give her a hug, and that was it, right? I get out of the car, and as she's driving off, I just felt like I couldn't let her go without asking her this question. And so, as dramatic as you can possibly imagine, she's at the light, and I run after her car, right? And I run up, and I, like, knock on her window, and I'm like, hey, like, I hate to, like, run after you, but I just, like, don't think I can let you go without asking you this question. And she's like, yeah, like, of course, like, what is it? And I'm like, out of curiosity, when did your mom pass away from brain cancer? And I know, and I was like, I know this is personal, so if you don't want to answer, don't feel like you have to. And she's like, you know, no, it's okay. And she passed away on October 16th. And I said, wow. And I always get emotional saying that. I started to cry, and I was like, you know, what I want you to know is that on October 16th, when your mom passed away, like, my life was perfect, right? And I woke up, and for no reason other than I felt so clearly that I was supposed to leave my family, leave my business, leave everything that I've ever known to go somewhere that I've never been for someone that I had never met. And I was like, and I didn't realize that until just now. And I was like, you may not think that like God's real, but like he, for the last 6 months, has been sending me and opening doors in my life on a rescue mission to find you. And what she told me, which baffles me, bro, she was like, she starts crying. And she's like, what I want you to know is that if we didn't have this conversation, like I had planned to take my life today. And that moment was confirmation that what I'm doing is being a light, is reaching people, right? And I'll be honest with you, there's been 4 or 5 instances like that I have experienced that have been like direct, confirmation that like, hey, like what you're doing is making a difference. And I'll be honest, like it's motivating and getting excited. But what really gets me excited is the people that I'll never meet, right? Like the names I'll never know, the hands I'll never shake. Like that's what gets me excited. And what I live for, right? Like what the day that I like personally live for. And obviously this is, like a preference for my beliefs. But the day I live for is the day that like I hope that I die, and like I'm sitting in heaven, like I'm having a conversation like similar to how you and I are chatting, like with Jesus, and like I just want to hear him be like, hey, like Blaine, like turn around, right? And I hope that like I turn around, and like for Christians or any faith, we have this idea of bare minimum, right? We have this idea of like, man, if I do just enough to get to whatever it is, heaven, afterlife, whatever, then like I've made it, right? Like if I live a life that's 51% good and 49%, like that's fine, right? It's good enough. And for me, like that is not enough. And it's like what I live for, and like what I like every day I pursue is the day that I die and that I'm in heaven. And like I said, we're having a conversation with Jesus, like I'm having with you. And for him to be like, hey, Blaine, like turn around. And, I pray that like I turn around and that I just see an ocean of people. Like I see people as far as the eye could see. And what I yearn for is to hear Jesus be like, do you see like everyone out in the crowd, like everyone that you're looking at? They know me a little bit more because of the life that you lived, right? That's it. And so it's like, for me, everything that I do is in hopes of reaching that one person. Something that fears me, and then I'll stop talking and we can kind of dive into that. But something that really is a fear for me that motivates me is the idea of disqualifying myself from reaching the person that I was supposed to reach. Right? I look at that girl and I think, in a worldly perspective, most people would celebrate their birthday instead of pay $2,000 to do a free video. If I were to have done that, she wouldn't be here. I don't want anything that I do to disqualify for the person I'm supposed to reach. And so every decision that I make is revolving around that idea of, is this preparing me to reach the person that I'm supposed to reach? And if it's not, I don't do it, right? And that can be, and this sounds crazy, and a lot of my people, and even Dylan, I'd love after this call, you can chat with Dylan, his perspective of me. But a lot of people, they think I live that so vigorously, right? Like if it's go to play spike ball at the beach or stay in and hop on this podcast, I will literally be like, do I think I can reach someone at spike ball, or do I think I can reach someone, chatting with you?